No records show people being executed, imprisoned, or socially ostracized solely for personal enjoyment of fairy tales. Unlike cases involving banned religious texts, political writings, or explicit heresy, broader cultural or ideological condemnation, fairy tale collections have faced censorship and bans due to content concerns like violence, stereotypes, and ideology. Historical example: Grimm's Tales, post-World War II, Allies banned publication in Germany, linking them to Nazi savagery. 1880s US, educators sought removal for cruelty and prejudice. 1931 China, Alice in Wonderland banned anthropomorphic. Modern, 1994 Arizona, Grimm's banned lower grades for violence and anti-Semitism. 1989 California, Little Red Riding Hood edition banned for depicting wine. 2019 Barcelona, 200 titles like Sleeping Beauty removed from kindergarten for toxic stereotypes. Authors/collectors facing criticism or indirect hardship. The Spanish Inquisition and similar bodies condemned superstitious stories or beliefs, but this targeted alleged heresy or idolatry more than casual enjoyment of tales. In medieval and early modern Europe, belief in fairies, changelings, or folk magic, often embedded in oral fairy tales, sometimes overlapped with accusations of witchcraft. However, fairy tales and folklore have intersected with persecution in indirect or related ways throughout history. Fairy tales, or folk tales, have often been viewed with suspicion and condemnation by authorities, religious, educational, or political, leading to censorship and bans or social stigma. But this rarely escalated to personal persecution of fans or enthusiasts. There are no well-documented historical cases of individuals being systematically persecuted, imprisoned, tortured, or executed specifically for liking fairy tales, reading them, telling them, or collecting them as a primary reason in modern times. Religious persecution often involves social exclusion, discrimination, or violence, even within one's own faith. For instance, progressive Christians may face ostracism from conservative communities over views on LGBTQ+ issues, while Shia Muslims in Sunni majority areas report harassment. Personal stories highlight emotional tolls like family shunning, e.g., ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, or denial of community support, leading to isolation and mental health struggles. Globally, reports from Pew and Open Doors note rising cases in 190+ countries since 2021. Informal or locally venerated saints in California are folk figures revered by communities, often without official Catholic canonization, especially in Latino and immigrant groups. Examples: Santa Muerte, Holy Death venerated for protection, justice, and aid in hardships. Popular in LA among those estranged from the church. Jesus Malverde, seen as a patron of the poor and migrants, invoked for financial help. San Toribio Romo helps immigrants cross borders safely. These blend faith, culture, and daily struggles. Saint Junipero Serra is the primary canonized saint strongly tied to California. A Spanish Franciscan, 1713 to 1784. He founded 9 missions, evangelizing Native Americans and shaping early California. Canonized in 2016 by Pope Francis, he's the patron of California and locations. Other saints have ties via place names, e.g., St. Francis in San Francisco, but Sarah's connection is direct.
In Eastern Orthodox, saints are venerated for their holiness. Some
Artificial intelligence, волк в отровни стихи, при опасни обстоятелства. Битие в безсмислена смърт, висока кула, скица с молив, кръстове, короня с врага навсякъде, звукът е силен изкуствен интелект.
Grace to pain, shaking glass breaks, martinis, there's birds, world, eye of horrors, thought on throne, in their homes, join into one, bit in the sun, glimmering day, Haskell takes my breath away, double J, velvet cake, dragon's page, Minukawa celebrates, tainted fate, feathered lace, like this to the stairs, facts up for dare, house of lords, moors and doors.
this
tradition
mess.
often
I'm
classifies
like
saints
kiss
into groups
kingdoms
based
of
on
the
their
earth,
life
sky
and
and dawn,
witness.
lying to myself,
Apostles, the 12
mysterious
and the
shell.
70, e.g., Saint
Welcome
Paul,
to hell.
Saint Andrew the First called. Prophets,
Grace to
Old
pain,
Testament
shaken glass breaks, martini stirs, birds world, dire for us, doth on throne bones, in their homes, joining
Great
into
martyrs like
one,
Saint
they bed
George,
in the sun,
Saint
glimmering day, high school cakes, mine,
Bishop
breath
of
away,
March,
opal jade, velvet cake,
Saint
dragon's page, Minokawa celebrates, night to
those who
fade,
suffer
feathered late, let us to the stairs, and be at peace,
Saint
desik
Athanasius
nadir,
the
Sasha jet waherken.
hierarchs, bishops and teachers, e.g., the three holy hierarchs, Saint Basil the Great, Saint Gregory the Theologian, Saint John Chrysostom, venerable slash ascetics, monks and hermits, e.g., desert fathers like Saint Anthony the Great, wonder workers, those known for miracles, e.g., Saint Nicholas, unmercenary healers, physicians who heal freely, e.g., SF,
Martini is hissy för maten,
Passion
negativt en
those who
hovedstad,
endured unjust suffering
refugerar
neatly,
sig till hamen, en sentekidi, GNX,
Righteous,
sitt för
holy
gen,
people,
resvelgarheter där,
Saint John of
nefsuye för dopen.
Orthodox saints include Old
Jederumen
Testament
al-Qadir,
figures,
accepteren,
prophets
dragens
like
min och
Moses,
kajas förultas med
apostles,
ett varstan
early
i ett
martyrs, church fathers, ascetics, wonder
straft
workers, modern
monstår.
saints, many pre-schism before 1054. Saints are shared with Catholicism, but post-schism saints are generally distinct to Orthodox. Saints are venerated duly, not worshipped and treated, reserved for God alone. Unlike Roman Catholicism, which has a centralized process through the Vatican, Orthodox canonization is decentralized and often occurs through local or synodal recognition, sometimes by popular acclamation, followed by liturgical veneration. The Orthodox Church teaches that all faithful departed who are with Christ are saints in a broad sense, but the Church publicly recognizes and commemorates specific ones through canonization. In Eastern Orthodoxy, saints, known as hagios or holy ones, are those who have lived lives of exceptional holiness, often marked by martyrdom, asceticism, teaching, or miraculous intercession, and are now in heaven with God. X.com/equal www.x.com/netanyahu/status/2016526867465900171 www.x.com/whitehouse/status/201658188862025442005 www.x.com/BBU_blackpink/status/201652227253487653. Modern religious persecution takes forms like violence, discrimination, legal restrictions, and social exclusion. For Christian against Christian cases, though rare in external threats,
Black fades away to a misty gray.
in Mexico, Catholic communities have pressured Protestant converts with threats.
Ädelstenslotteri, smärtens avgrund, elegant raseri, skuggeface, tröjat, fåglar fame, money base, Lisa Jag, skriftende banner, sticker vaj, sorg försvinner till en tåg i grå, en trädande gravar med soner, väntar kall i huvudet, borta en wolf, en venomous elements, in dangerous circumstances, genesis and senses death, high tower, pencil sketch.
Crosses crown the
88
town
them
all across the
Christians
sound.
face high persecution worldwide, mostly
Artificial
from states or extremists. Sources vary by region.
Вълквотром стихии при опасни обстоятелства, бити в безмислена смърт, висока кула, скица смоли в кръстове кораняс от града, навсякъде звукът е силен, изкуствен интелект.
These same stories come from early church accounts, Acts of the Martyrs, and emphasize that persecution often involved public spectacle, torture, and death penalties, emperor worship, or pagan rites. The Great Persecution under Diocletian 303 modern examples like Saint Maximilian died in 1904, who volunteered to die in Auschwitz in place of another prisoner during Nazi persecution, or Saint Edith Stein, Teresa Benedicta Cross, died in 1942, gassed in Auschwitz as a Jewish convert. Saint Cyprian of Carthage, 258 bishops during Valerian's persecution, exile, and hiding. Saint Polycarp, the 155 Bishop of Smyrna, Burned alive at 86 after refusing to curse Christ, saying, 86 years I have served him, and he never did me wrong. Saint Ignatius of Antioch, 107 to 110 bishop thrown to lions in Rome under Trajan. En route, he wrote letters urging, famously saying he was God's man, drowned by the teeth of beasts. Saint Perpetua and Saint Lucy, 251 after March, under some teething. Perpetua, a noble woman and new mother, and Felicity, her pregnant enslaved companion, were thrown to wild beasts and finished by the sword after refusing to offer incense to the emperor. Their prison diary, one of the earliest Christian texts by a woman, details visions encouraging their family opposition and public execution. Saint Lucy, 304 martyred in Syracuse during Diocletian's reign. Legends describe her eyes being gouged out or self-removed to deter than being stabbed or burned. She represents steadfastness despite physical torment with Saint Agnes, BC 30 for a young woman during Diocletian's reign. Refusing marriage and pagan sacrifices, she was exposed publicly.
Dragon's page, Minokawa, celebrate, tainted fate, feather laid. Ladies to the stairs, en beattit signaderar associate فهركن مرتي استيسي فمانا لنيتا ليتن هورستوت بفكرسي اكسن لكي خامن سن كيزكي ونكس بتوتي شاسيت فجيجن رسفل غريتار تاف نفسي ويفخل طوبال جدا أغرم للقادرة سبترن دراكس Minokawa يسفقل تزمرتت واحتم يتفارت التي شار تراف
موستو. Saint Lawrence, 250 on a gridiron. Legend says he quipped, "Turn me over, I'm done on this side." His gruesome death made him one of the most famous early martyrs. Saint Paul, c. 1st century, formerly a persecutor of Christians, as Saul, he converted and became a tireless missionary. He endured multiple imprisonments, beatings, stonings, shipwrecks, and floggings before being beheaded in Rome under Nero. His letters described years of hardship for the gospel. Saint Peter, c. 1st century, the first pope, and one of Jesus' apostles. Tradition holds he was crucified upside down in Rome during Nero's persecution, c. 64 to 68 AD, after refusing to flee the city, declaring himself
Gemstone castles in the abyss of pain.
His martyrdom symbolized the
shadow
early
face,
church's
try to
under
maze, lunar
empire-wide
base,
violence.
light to
Often
change,
during
changing
periods of
lanes,
intense Roman
sure
imperial
fire
crackdowns on
waves,
Christianity.
black fades away
First
to a
to fourth
mystic
centuries.
gray, a tiring grave,
These figures
Amazons
are
and wait,
celebrated
love
for their
at the
unwavering
gates.
commitment despite
Edhe se slota i smertens avgrund Elegant razeri skugge face Tröjat får blå fame money base Lisa Jagger skriften det banner sikker vei Sårt forsvinner til en tog i grå En tredende graver med sånne venter gærlig Holder borten en wolf and venomous elements In dangerous circumstances Genesis and senses death High tower pencil sketch
Crosses
Patron of priest/Houngan
across
Saint
the
Joseph,
sound is
carpenter,
loud,
provider, often
artificial
with tools,
intelligence.
Agri, Luau of the Sea,
Вълк в отровни стихии при опасни обстоятелства Битие, безмислена смърт, висока кула Скица с моли в кръстове кораняс от града Навсякъде звукът е силен, изкуствен интелект
Grace to pain,
Esmond
shaking glass
Dancer,
breaks,
another fierce
martini
aspect,
stirs,
often overlapping with Dante or Arcadia Pescachala, or Black Madonna. Simon, water slash snake
join into
magic,
one
healing often Saint Raphael the Archangel,
glimmering
healer,
day
or
as
variation
vulgar
of
takes my breath
Grand
away.
BWA, wild forest Loa, sometimes linked to Saint Anthony of Padua, patron of the lost, wilderness hermit. Agui, Luau of the Sea, navigation, fish, ship Saint Ulrich, or sometimes Saint Expedite in naval context, but more commonly linked to sea saints like Saint Nicholas. Below are some of the most commonly recognized and widely documented syncretisms. Papa Legba, gatekeeper, opener of roads, trickster, messenger between worlds Saint Peter, often depicted with keys, symbolizing access to paths and crossroads. Dambalawedo, serpent Lua of creation, wisdom, rainbows, ancient and benevolent Saint Patrick, surrounded by snakes in iconography, or sometimes Moses with serpents. Isazin, market woman, protector of commerce, first priestess, associated with palm leaf Street Claire or Saint Clair, often shown with a monstrance or clear vision. Baron Samedi, leader of the Ged family, Lord of Death, cemeteries, sexuality, and the dead Saint Elias, or sometimes Saint Expedite in some contexts, but more commonly linked to death imagery.
Oga family, warrior law of iron, fire, justice, protection, includes Oga Fury, Oga Badagries, etc. Saint James the Greater, Santiago Matamoros, often shown as a warrior on horseback slaying. Enemies, or Saint George, dragon slayer, military saint. Variations include Saint Martin of Tours or Saint Christopher. Ursula Frida, law of love, beauty, luxury, sensuality. Rivers Mater Dolorosa, Our Lady of Sorrows, the Grieving Virgin Mary, or sometimes Our Lady of Lord. Ursula Danter, fierce protector of women, children, single mothers. Warrior aspect of Love Our Lady of Czestochowa, Black Madonna, often with a scarred face, or Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Marasa, divine twins, children spirits of joy, mischief, and duality Saints Cosmas and Damian, twin healer brothers, often depicted as children or young men. The syncretism is not mere disguise. Many Vodou practitioners are also practicing Catholics, viewing the Wa as compatible with or even as aspects of saintly intercession. Note that correspondences vary by lineage, Haunfer or temple, region, family tradition, and even individual relationships with the spirits. There is no single universal list, and some Wa have multiple saint associations depending on their aspects or manifestation. This resulted in the Wa, spirits or Loa, intermediaries between humans and the Supreme Creator Bondat, being associated with specific Catholic saints. The saints' images, statues, chromolithographs, altars, prayers, and feast days serve as visible representations of the Wa. In ceremonies, called services or fete, practitioners often begin with Catholic prayers, litanies of saints, and hymns before invoking the Wa through drumming, singing, possession, and offerings. During the colonial era and under slavery, practitioners blended African spiritual traditions, especially from Fon, Yoruba, and Congo influences, with Catholicism to preserve their beliefs while appearing to conform to the dominant Christian religion imposed by French colonizers. In Haitian Vodou, often spelled Vodou or Voodoo in English, a major Afro-Caribbean religion originating from enslaved West and Central African peoples in Haiti, syncretism with Roman Catholicism is a core feature. These practices vary regionally and personally. Some root workers use saints sparingly or not at all, preferring psalms and roots alone. Sources like Lucky Mojo, Aromages Botanica, and traditional conjure texts provide detailed correspondences and spell ideas. To work with them, practitioners might set up a small altar with the saint's image, light a dressed vigil candle, oil, herbs, petition paper. Recite psalms, e.g., Psalm 23 for protection, Psalm 37 for justice, and speak a direct petition. Offerings depend on the saint, cake for expedite, flowers for Mary, etc. Here are some of the most commonly worked with saints in hoodoo rituals, along with their typical associations and uses. Saint Expedite, also Saint Expeditus, one of the most popular in conjure. He's the go-to for urgent, fast results, hurry up magic, breaking delays, quick money, job opportunities, court cases, or emergencies. Petitioned with red candles, pound cake, or plain cake. Flowers, and sometimes a crow image, symbolizing expedite from a legendary story. Offerings are given after the request is granted to avoid angering him. He's especially big in New Orleans hoodoo. Saint Michael the Archangel, invoked for protection, justice, banishing evil, cutting ties with enemies, or spiritual warfare. Red or white candles, swords or military imagery, and prayers like the Saint Michael prayer. Often used in uncrossing, reversal, or shielding work. Saint Martha the Dominator, or Saint Martha of Powerhouse,
which one would
for
I like
domination,
here?
Control,
Immortal
and
Consequences
Saint
fits that
Intuition,
spicy
controlling
paranormal
others,
romance vibe you're
making
looking
them
for.
faithful or
Je
return,
l'ai cherché
defeating enemies, or handling difficult people.
sans plus
Blue
y
or white
croire.
candles, often with a dragon, from her legend of subduing the Tarasque beast.
You think you know from one?
Love domination, finding,
New
or
cause,
commanding
new
spells.
power,
Saint
new
Jude Thaddeus,
teams.
patron of
A new
hopeless
destination.
causes, desperate situations, lost causes, or when all
Soul
else
to drive
fails.
for.
Green or white candles, often with a novena. Common in spells for financial relief, healing impossible illnesses, or turning around dire circumstances. Saint Cyprian, San Cipriano, the patron of magicians, sorcerers, witches, and occult workers. Called upon for strong magic, protection against curses, breaking hexes, necromancy-like work, or amplifying conjure power. Often used in high-level protection enemy work. Or spells involving spirits/demons from his pre-conversion sorcerer backstory. Black or purple candles, sometimes with grimoires or keys. Saint Anthony of Padua, finder of lost things, objects, people, love, opportunities. Brown or yellow candles, often with a child Jesus statue. Used in location spells, return lost lover work, or finding hidden money/jobs. Virgin Mary, various titles like Our Lady of Guadalupe, Immaculate Heart, or Mount Carmel General Protection, healing, motherhood, mercy, and love. Blue or white candles, roses. She's a foundational figure for many altars. Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, Joseph for family harmony, peace in the home, child protection, or loyalty in relationships. Nativity scenes or images used in domestic spells. Saint Raymond non-natus or Saint Dymphna, for justice in legal matters, protection from false accusations, or mental health/healing. Hoodoo is not centered on Catholic saint veneration for all practitioners. Many focus on biblical figures, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, or ancestors, but it's prominent among those influenced by Catholicism, especially in Louisiana and urban conjure traditions. Their images, statues, holy cards, or chromolithographs are placed on altars, dressed with oils, dressed with herbs, or used in candle work. Common practices include novenas, psalms recitation alongside petitions, and offerings like food, coins, or rum. In hoodoo, also known as conjure or root work, a primarily African-American folk magic tradition rooted in the American South, practitioners often incorporate Catholic saints as spiritual intercessors or powerful figures to petition for aid. This draws from syncretic influences, including Catholicism introduced through enslavement and contact with European traditions, blended with African spiritual practices, Protestant Christianity, and herbal/root work elements. Santa Muerte, Holy Death, a Mexican folk saint, not canonized by the Catholic Church, personifying death, often depicted as a skeletal figure. She's tied to occult practices for protection, healing, or love spells, blending Catholic devotion with paranormal elements like ancestor veneration and necromancy. Saint Joseph of Cupertino, 1603 to 1663, the Flying Saint, who levitated during Mass or prayer, sometimes soaring to ceilings or trees. His feats are documented in church stories, symbolizing paranormal levitation in occult traditions. Saint Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, 1887 to 1968, experienced stigmata, wounds mimicking Christ's, by location, appearing in two places at once in battles with demons. In folklore, he's tied to paranormal phenomena like the odor of sanctity, a holy scent, and is invoked against evil spirits. Saint Teresa of Avila, 1515 to 1582, famous for intense ecstasies, raptures, and levitation during prayer, where she'd float off the ground. Her mystical writings describe inner casting of the soul, influencing occult symbolism, spiritual alchemy, and paranormal.
Let's go to word. To the left. Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. Freeze! Everybody clap your hands.
Saint Hildegard of Bingen,
Turn it
1098
out.
to 1179, a visionary mystic whose revelations included cosmic visions and herbal healing knowledge.
Think you know Formula One? From the garage to the grandstand.
We live and breathe every lap. This is Formula One.
Saint Cyprian of Antioch, c. 3rd century, a former sorcerer and magician who converted after failing to enchant Saint Justino with spells. He's the patron saint saint of occultists, necromancers, and those renouncing magic, often invoked in grimoires and folk magic for protection against curses or to aid in spell work. These connections often stem from hagiography, saintly biographies, or folk practices where their intercessions are invoked in magical or paranormal contexts, such as in hoodoo or folk Catholicism. Note that occult here refers to hidden or esoteric aspects, not necessarily anti-Christian ones. Some saints are associated with mystical, visionary, or supernatural elements that overlap with occult themes like visions, levitation, stigmata, or even pre-conversion sorcery. Other early desert fathers, like Saint Simeon and Saint Andreas, embodied wild traits, grazing on raw plants, living naked among animals, or drinking from puddles like beasts, representing a return to primal, uncivilized spirituality. Saint Kateri Tekakwitha, 1656 to 1680, the first Native American saint. She's a patron of the environment and ecology. Raised in Mohawk and Algonquin traditions, her life involved wilderness living, and she's linked to natural healing and protection of indigenous lands and folklore. Saint Mary of Egypt, c. 344 to 421, a desert hermit who fled civilization for penance. She's portrayed in icons with long, unkempt hair resembling an animal pelt. Her story emphasizes survival in harsh wilderness through divine grace, influencing tales of wild women in Christian folklore. Saint Hubert, c. 656 to 727, the patron saint of hunters. His legend involves a vision in the Ardennes forest where a stag appeared with a crucifix between its antlers, leading to his conversion. He's tied to woodland folklore, protecting against rabies and symbolizing ethical hunting in wild spaces. Saint Anthony the Great, c. 251 to 356, known as the father of monasticism. He lived as a hermit in the Egyptian desert, enduring temptations and visions. Folklore depicts him encountering mythical creatures, like a centaur and satyr during his journeys, symbolizing the blend of Christian asceticism with pagan wilderness myths, harmoniously with wildlife, viewing all creation as siblings. His Canticle of the Sun praises natural elements like the sun and wind. Many saints in Christian tradition, particularly from early monastic and hermit lifestyles, are connected to wilderness, nature, and animal lore. These figures often retreated to remote areas for spiritual purity, interacting with the natural world in ways that blended faith with folk elements like beast-like behavior or mythical encounters. Fairy tale saints
Live. Oh no, this little one's perfect.
Oh, who is so perfect? Who are these perfect puppies listening at the party with so much going on? Who are these perfect little puppies?
Hallo Jungs! Wir gehen auf eine kleine Bootstour.
Die Freude aufs Shooting ist groß.
Ich bin nervös, ich habe noch nie so ein Fotoshooting gehabt.
Gut aussehen und dann auch modeln können, das sind auch nochmal wieder 2 Paar Schuhe, ne? In dieser Woche habe ich einen besonderen Gast. Hier ist Baptiste.
Cooler Typ, hat Aura. Let's go!
Yes!
I want it more.
Nett sollte es nicht sein.
Krass.
Germany's Next Topmodel bei Heidi Klum. Immer